All right, let's go to this new segment. We're going to do most underrated player of the week. Oh, who should start? You should start. Tell me your most underrated player. Who's the guy this week?
I got Al Jefferson.
Okay.
And it's because his name had fallen out of the spotlight a little bit the last couple of years. And he's playing in a market in Utah where most folks on the East Coast don't see those games. The Jazz just aren't a big market team. But the Jazz are 9-4. I mean, they got off to a horrendous start in the first couple of games. And the Jazz are 9-4. And one of the reasons is Al Jefferson. He's putting in 18 and 9 a night, averaging almost 2 blocks a game. He's that big man that most teams covet in the paint. He's a good defender. He's a good scorer. And I remember when the Celtics traded him to get Kevin Garnett, and obviously no one looks back on that with any regret because of the Celtics winning the NBA title. But that was such a bittersweet moment for Boston fans, if you remember at the time, because people realized this guy's ceiling. They realized the kind of potential that he had as a player. And we saw some glimpses of it the last couple of years in Minnesota, but they just didn't have the team that was winning games to kind of elevate him in the way that we're kind of seeing LaMarcus Aldridge get elevated a little bit more, a guy that's putting up big statistics, but because the Blazers are winning. Now that the Jazz are winning, I think you're going to start to see Al Jefferson, reemerge, and people go, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. He's awesome. And he is, and I think he's just flying under the radar a little bit right now. But I think, most insider folks like us are realizing just what kind of player Jefferson is.
Well, he's not that flashy, right? And I think that sometimes that plays into it because it's what you see on SportsCenter,
He is a straight-up, old-school
fundamentals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My guy is completely different. Rudy Gay. And I know we were talking about him before, and I know you were talking about his inconsistency, but I don't think that Rudy Gay is appreciated very much. When you're going through and you're looking at who your big small forwards are, you want, small forwards, that perfect position to have that Carmelo type, because they're tall enough to pound with power forwards occasionally in mismatches when they're driving the lane, but they can also pull back for the three or the mid-range jumper. Small forward is that dynamic position, right? Like, you want a guy at a three who can be a firecracker and dynamic for your team. Rudy Gay flies under that radar. And he is having his best season ever. He came out of that injury. He must have sat on the bench, hated it, saw the Grizzlies have a great playoff run last year and finally get ousted. And he's doing it all this year. And when you watch him play, he's so electric. And that's what the Grizzlies were missing last year. They had that great defense. I feel like I think they did lead the league in steals last year. I mean, they have that great perimeter defense. And they have Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph, who are just pounders down low, and they'll pound you, and they'll pound you, and they'll pound you. But then you miss that mid-range game, that guy that will pump fake around the 3 line and then drive the lane and find a way to finesse it past you. Rudy Gay is that guy, and he's one of the best in the league. Easily one of the best small forwards in the league, and he floats too far under the radar. But, he's hovered around 15 or 16 points a game. This year, he's at 18.3 points a game, 6.5 assists, a steal and a half, 2 assists, 6.5 rebounds per game. But he's being consistent this year. And you talked about him being inconsistent throughout his career, and my first note on him in talking about him today is consistency. He's been producing like this, he's actually been producing 15 games, about 15, 16 points a game since his sophomore season. Although on a game-to-game basis, you're not really sure. Well, he's doing it this year. And it's been tough for Memphis because they lost Zach Randolph, but they've got Rudy Gay, and he's really scoring a lot of points for them. I just feel like we forget about him because the Grizzlies had their best year in recent history last year when they made that big run, and Rudy Gay was not a part of it, and therefore the team took on a very different nature. But you can't forget that with Rudy Gay, that team is 100% different, and they are a force to be reckoned with when they get Zach Randolph back. But he's out for so long, can they put themselves in a position to benefit from him? Probably. They're going to make the playoffs. They may be a 6 or a 7 seed, maybe an 8 seed. We'll see. But I really do think Rudy Gay floats underneath the radar. And I don't have his contract numbers in front of me, but you can bet that he's going to get paid next time this comes around. You can bet.
Let's talk about Rudy Gay in light of a player who I think is a very good comparison and maybe more of what Gay could become. That's Carmelo Anthony. Similar size guys, short careers in the Big East. Melo at Cuse, Rudy Gay at UConn. I think Carmelo has always been a little bit more polished. I think it's taken Gay a little bit longer to become more well-rounded, and I think that's why, to your point, you're seeing more consistency out of him this season. He's been in the league now a couple of years.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, why do you when do you think that we could be seeing him potentially at a Carmelo type level?
Never. I mean, he's never going to be at a Carmelo type level. Carmelo is a little bit. There's. I don't know how to put it. It's almost like Carmelo's he looks like Gumby out there, you know? I mean, like with the fadeaways and the way that he contorts his body, that body control driving the lane. Rudy Gay's never going to be quite at that level. He's not going to be as elite a scorer. I mean, I don't even know if everybody would put Carmelo in their top 10 players in this league, and he may not be, but he's definitely a top 3 scorer in this league. And Rudy Gay's just not going to quite be. Do you know what I mean?
Well, here's where I'm going with this. Is Carmelo Anthony more naturally? I'm not talking about athletically talented. Is Carmelo Anthony more naturally basketball inclined, basketball talented? Yes, I think the answer to that is yes. I think Rudy Gay is a better athlete, and I guess my point is this: I wonder, is it just a matter of Rudy Gay taking more shots? I was going back and forth before looking at some of their career numbers. They have a virtually identical career field goal percentage. I think Rudy Gay is at 450, just under 46%. Carmelo Anthony is just under 46%. They're both virtually identical. For his career, Carmelo Anthony has taken approximately 4.5 more shots per game than Rudy Gay. One of the reasons that you see much higher points per game. I think a big advantage that Carmelo has over Rudy Gay is that he just gets to the free throw line way more than Rudy Gay because he goes stronger to the basket. He's good out of that post up, and he's very good, very comfortable with his back to the basket, squaring up, and then getting to the basket to get fouled. I just wonder if we're going to see a situation in Rudy Gay's career where he maybe gets off of a team like the Grizzlies that have, even though Randolph is hurt right now, when he's there, when he's healthy, they have several other, potent scoring options. But I wonder if we're ever going to see a situation where Rudy Gay is asked to be a guy that takes 20 shots a night. Because if you look at the numbers, there's not a lot of differences. It just kind of seems like Gay hasn't taken as many shots. And look, he might not have the basketball IQ that Carmelo Anthony does. And I know that this is something of a lofty comparison. But if the more you look at the stats, I don't know if he's been willing to take on and shoulder the load that Carmelo has over his career, because a lot of the percentages are very, very similar.
The thing is, I know, but I feel like the type of player is I mean, that's my big comparison. I mean, that's how I introduced it, is having that athletic small forward that can be that spark and play both inside and outside. But at the same time, Carmelo's he's that post-game guy. Like he knows how to play in the post. He'll spin off of you. He can hit the fadeaway. This is what Carmelo does. He's great in transition. Rudy Gay's also very good in transition, but he's a little bit more of a spot-up shooter and a pick-and-pop guy, which is, I think, the main difference now. Now, if you're talking about if you want to transition Rudy Gay, give him more of a post-game, give him the opportunity to be a little bit more electric and get to the free throw line more. I'm not necessarily sure that he's going to be able to fulfill that because I don't know if that's who he is. You know what I mean?